Welcome to Poolside with Pamela, where we interview CEOs and celebrities about leadership and what inspires them in philanthropy. And today we are very fortunate to have Gary Austin, the founder of Groundlings, with us, which is the premier place to study improv if you're not going to study with Gary. And he is just an incredible leader and someone who is committed to this for how many years, Gary?
I started teaching in 1972.
Oh my goodness. So for probably more than 40 years now, he has been on the circuit teaching improv, relentlessly performing all over, an incredible musician as well. So we're so fortunate to have Gary here with us today. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down here.
Thank you.
All the way from San Francisco.
That's right. That's right. So, Gary, can you tell us a little bit about, from your viewpoint, what is leadership? And that can be, it's not just in business or in our personal lives, but what does leadership mean to you?
There are some people who think that leadership is what happens in the military. You get elevated to a certain rank, and now you're more of a leader and more of a leader. And when you're a general, you're really a leader. I've never bought that one. I think Martin Luther King was a leader. Mm-hmm. I think Elia Kazan was a leader. I think Paul Sills and Del Close were leaders in improvisational theater. Nobody, put a thing on their jacket with ribbons that said, "This says you're a leader."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what would you say, Gary, for you is important in being a leader? What are some of the qualities that you need to have?
Besides being able to lead, one must be a great follower. And I understand as an actor what it is to be a follower. I was an actor long before I ever taught or directed. And I put myself, I find it very difficult to direct and act in the same show. I put myself in the role of complete submission when I'm an actor. Complete following and submission. I'm not responsible for anything except being in response to what's going on. As a director and as a teacher, I have to coordinate things and control things and make sure that everything is going well. I'm sure you understand that one.
Yes, yeah. And so for you, when you were kind of getting into this stage of figuring out what you wanted to do and how you wanted to lead in life, how did it go to acting, and then how did it transition from acting to improv?
When I was a little kid, I grew up in the Nazarene Church in Texas. I'm actually an Okie. I was born in Oklahoma, and then I learned about acting by watching Evangelists. I didn't know that's what I was watching, and they were sincere, I believe. It was not like now on television with 20,000 people in a church and all that. It was real down-home stuff. If you saw The Apostle starring Robert Duvall, that's what it was like. It was very much like that little church thing. And preachers were incredible actors. And I used to go see plays in Corpus Christi, Texas, when I was a little kid, brought to town by a woman named Claire Tree Major, and they were fairy tales. And I wanted to be up there and do that. I was in church plays, and I also wanted to be Gene Autry and Roy Rogers. I wanted to be a singing cowboy. Don't forget, maybe you don't need to say don't forget. We had no television in the 40s. It was all radio. So I was exposed to preachers and fairy tales on stage and the radio.
Very powerful. So that really made you visualize rather than being just fed the visuals.
Sure. I didn't know that those actors on Burns and Allen and Jack Benny and those shows, I didn't know they were standing in front of microphones. I thought they were moving around in the situations that we imagined them in.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And how did that transition to improv? Where did that come in, Gary?
That was an accident. I am a theater major from San Francisco State University. I've done the classics. I also did theater at Southern Illinois University. And I set out to be an actor, and I happened to see the committee. And I had never gone to see the committee being a spin-off of Second City. Alan Meyerson took people from Chicago when he was co-directing with Paul Sills, went to San Francisco and recruited a bunch of socialists and put together a company bringing people from Chicago too. And I had never gone, and I went to see them when they opened in Los Angeles. And I had never seen that kind of theater before. And the show that I saw, there were probably only 2 improvisations in it, but all of the material, people call it sketch. When it's good, I call it scenes, not sketches. The scenes that they did all came from improvisation. They didn't sit down and write a word. And when I worked there, I eventually became an actor there, and when I worked there, we never wrote a word down. We memorized all our scenes by doing them over and over and over again. And the ones that worked, we kept in the shows and got reviewed by the press. And then when I created the Groundlings, same thing. We didn't write anything down. So I loved that way of working, and somehow the final product that comes from that is very different, I think, than when one sits down and writes. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I just think there's a very different feel to it, different style.
Yeah. And then after that, did you go right into the improv and start to study that, or did you mix it with acting as well?
I was doing both at the same time, and I was also a social worker in South Central Los Angeles during the daytimes for 4 years. At night, I was doing I was doing theater all over Hollywood, and eventually getting involved with the committee. I started out there as stage manager, which meant what I meant was I ran lights. So I'm the guy who decided when the shows were improvised, and the second show, certain shows were improvised. I decided when the lights went out. So I had to watch these actors, and for a year I watched them, and I had to know when to take the lights out, and sometimes I made mistakes, and I had actors screaming at me and directors screaming at me, and other times I took them out at the right time, but the pressure was tremendous. And one of the things that I noticed about the scene work that was the same every night, that I had never really seen before up close, was that where I was sitting, stage left in the wings with the light board. By the way, the light board was about 8 feet tall. It was very different back then, technically. And I watched these actors every night do the same scenes, and somehow they were different every night. They didn't change any words. They didn't change any behavior. They didn't change anything physical that one would notice. But there was a different feeling, like it had never been done before. And I know that's what theater is anyway, and I have done that in the theater, in plays. But I had never seen it done just sitting there watching it for a whole year, 13 shows a week, in front of 350 people, and feeling the different audience reactions. And that's when I really learned. That's one of the places where, one of the times where I really learned.
Really powerful, because you are really talking about following there. You're listening, you're learning, and you're finding out what your passion is.
Right.
And what is the dynamic about it that makes you passionate?
Yes. Is that a question?
You can answer it if you'd like. It's improv here, so we can do that. I think, one thing that I know that our viewers would like to hear is that you're very fortunate. You found out that your pathway in acting and improv pretty early on. You
Yes.
had some experiences
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Gary, if you hadn't chosen that, what would you be doing?
Center field for the Red Sox. Not this late in life.
Yes.
No, I don't think I would have made it as center fielder at Red Fox. Red Fox. I used to work with Red Fox. But I certainly wanted to do that. I wanted to be 3 things when I was really young in Texas. I wanted to be a preacher, I wanted to be a singing cowboy, and I wanted to play center field for the Boston Red Sox.
I love it. That's some good diversity there.
What do those 3 things have in common?
They're all showmanship.
Yes, they're all in front of audiences.
Yeah. which is great and so powerful. And that's really helpful as leaders, because I believe everyone is a leader, that we're aware of
Cool.
what is it that makes us inspired, right?
Right.
What inspires you when you see people come to your class? Because you teach acting and improv classes. What are you looking for that you find is inspiring when you're working with people?
People who are able to be 100% present now, as opposed to 5 seconds from now or 5 seconds earlier. We live in the present. I study animals. I've always had dogs all my life. I have lots of dogs now. Animals live in the present. They don't live in the past or the future. And whenever I have had animals on stage, sometimes some people will bring a dog, for instance. The animal steals the scene. And why is that? Well, I finally figured it out. It's because the animal is in the present moment. And the actor is worried about, oh, what do I say now? Or, oh, what's going to happen next? Oh, I hope I'm good. I hope they like me. The animal is just there responding to what's going on. So I found that if actors who were sharing the stage with animals did the same thing, the animal could not steal the scene. And it's true. The animal shares the scene with the actor when that happens. The animal does not steal the scene. Same thing with babies and children.
And what a powerful lesson for all of us, too, to think about when someone is speaking or when we're in a
Right.
conversation or a meeting, that, no one should steal the show. And if
Yeah.
we're responding naturally,
Yes.
then there's no partner that's greater or conversationalist that's better or a person that's better. It's all that we're responding naturally to what's happening in the moment.
Yeah, and I think to follow up on what you said about a moment ago about leadership and what you just said, that what was I going to say? Now, see, there I go.
Well, you can come back again.
I think that I don't know if this is what I was going to say, but I'll say this: if I am totally present and I'm not totally present, that's very difficult. But my aim is to be totally present in the moment. And when I'm totally present in the moment, I can do no wrong. It's a lot like what Michael Jordan said about basketball, about playing basketball. This is probably a paraphrase, but he said, when I'm in the zone, I can't miss the basket. And that's a feeling I like to have, and I have it sometimes.
Absolutely.
If I had it 100%, I would probably already have gone off to heaven and would be enjoying eternal life.
There it comes back in the religion. Gary,
Oh, no.
switching a little bit here.
Yes.
What else is important to you outside of acting and improv? What do you think is important to have in your life as a leader or just as a person?
To know what's going on in the world, my immediate world, and the world out there. Like watching the news these days, I'm glued to the news, and there it really affects my life. Everything that's going on internationally and nationally affects my life. I minored in political science, majored in theater, minored in political science, and oh, by the way, I was raised a Republican. My father was a big Richard Nixon was my father's hero. And I was very right-wing all through much of high school. And as a kid, I was very Republican. And when John F. Kennedy beat Nixon, I literally cried. I was a college student then at San Francisco State University. When I saw Jack Kennedy's inaugural speech, it took me that long to become a Democrat.
Well, and there you go. That's a good lesson in leadership, too, from what
Yes.
JFK was doing, right?
Yes, yes.
And then, Gary, if you can also share with us, because I know this is important and most leaders have this, what's important to you in philanthropy?
Wow. Well, if I were a very wealthy man, my first allegiance to put money into, my first allegiance would be animals and animal cruelty, animal welfare. Sometimes people say, about people who put in lots of activism and money into animal things, but what about people? Well, my answer to that is, you take care of the people, I'll take care of the animals.
I love that. I love it. Everyone has their calling,
Yes,
right?
yes.
That's great.
Right.
Gary, thank you so much for your time today. You are an incredible leader in the
Oh,
improv
thank you.
and acting space. I
Thank
feel
you.
privileged that I've gotten to study underneath you
Thank
and
you.
learn from you. And so we are signing off here with Poolside with Pamela, with one of our just most formidable leaders, actor and improviser Gary Austin, the founder of Groundlings. And we're so grateful for all the leadership lessons, inspiration, and his philanthropy that he shared with us today.
Thank you, Pamela.
Thank you, Gary.